Hi, welcome to AI Impacts. Today, we discuss the impact AI is having on enterprise workflows. My name is Dean Hansen. I'm joined, as always, by George Little, and this week's expert guest is Matt Sobel. Matt helps lead partnerships and alliances at Writer, the generative AI platform for large enterprises. Hi, Matt. Welcome to AI Impacts.
Dean, George, thanks for having me. Very much appreciate it.
You're absolutely welcome. To kick things off, Matt, could you give the listeners a quick overview of you, your role, and your experience?
Yeah, sure thing. And again, thanks for having me. This is gonna be a lot of fun. I'm Matt Sobel. I help lead partnerships at a startup called Writer. We're a generative AI platform built for large enterprises. In terms of my background, nothing too crazy. Just I'm a serial AI startup guy. So I love helping software companies, specifically in the realm of AI, scale. And I've been focusing my career on that for the last 8 years.
Oh, wow. 8 years. Goodness me. So you're an early adopter.
Early adopter, but generative AI was around before it was called Gen AI, and it got super sexy and cool. So I guess I'm fortunate to be an early adopter on that wave for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's, that's quite a good position, quite a unique position, I guess, because everyone's. I guess there's a lot of bandwagoning with AI at the minute, but you can say, I was there right from the start.
It's funny when George and I had a time working together at another AI company, and I often think, wow, like if some of the transformer technology and the large language models existed then, like how different our product roadmap would have been for that company.
Yeah, seriously, like the amount of stuff that they were trying to do that is now so easily doable with ChatGPT is unbelievable.
It's crazy.
So that actually, while we're on that reminds me of something. I was watching a documentary about, there's this guy, Clive Sinclair in the UK, and he built this tiny little Sinclair C5, it was called. It's this tiny little electric car, but it was like basic, like a bucket that you would drive in. And it was back in the 80s when battery life was rubbish and like technology was rubbish. And he had a really, really great idea to do this to implement this technology. But the problem was like the adjacent technologies that he needed to implement that idea were not anywhere near ready. So I guess it's a bit like that with AI and stuff. There's been a lot of great ideas and things how to use it, but actually the underlying technology didn't quite exist. And it's all of a sudden in this last 18 months or something where it's really just clicked in, and this final step has enabled all these technologies.
Yeah.
I mean, there's see it's.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Matt, please.
I was gonna say, that's actually the reason why it's so fascinating that AI has been around since like the 50s, right? The first papers about generative AI or just AI in general were around in like the late 50s. What's fascinating about that is the enterprise adoption of AI is coming around now because the cost declines on both the software and the hardware side of things have enabled it so that companies and consumers alike can start to leverage the technology without having like millions of dollars of hardware to like run these complex algorithms.
Gotcha.
And that's like an amazing trend.
I mean, everyone can access ChatGPT for free, right? I mean, like, how powerful is that? Anybody, like my granny could go on her phone and access ChatGPT. It's mind-boggling.
And there's
it almost reminds.
Sorry, I want to hear it.
It almost reminds me of how like old stereo systems were put together, where you would spend a ton of time or money on like one particular piece of the whole unit. And then all of a sudden you have something like an Apple TV or a Fire Stick or something that takes that entire package and puts it into like one thing, where now that whole platform is not what you're worried about. It's just what you're building on top of it or what you're adding to it or whatever.
So would we say that's like the commoditization of technologies?
It seems so, or like almost the repackaging, right? Where it gets to a point where all these individual layers kind of crunched into one package and become, I mean, the same thing is, speaking of cars, the same thing is happening with electric cars, where GM is going all in on just building a platform that's the drivetrain, the batteries, steering, wheels, brakes, and everything. So you can just plop your car on top of it. So it's not so different, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose it's a ubiquitous across technology. If you look at like PCs, right? Like the whole or I guess Macs compared to PCs, it's just that simplification. Anyway,
Yeah.
We digress.
Good tangent.
So yeah, okay. So jumping into AI, obviously, Matt, you're coming at everything from a very AI perspective. I'm just going to have to remind myself to keep speaking slowly because our listeners are not going to necessarily be fluent in the Geordie accent. We can keep this in. Yeah. So are you currently using any specific AI tools? Which tools are you using and what do they do?
Yeah, I love this conversation, so I'm glad we're opening it up. I will say everyone has the wherewithal to talk about like AI is going to make this big impact, but so few people like actually talk about their real workflows and their tools and like what they're doing day to day.
Yeah.
And that's like where I'd love to spend a lot of time like getting into the weeds. I like learning from others too. So George, Dean, like tell me what tools you're using because I'm trying to constantly.
Yeah, well, that's why George and I set up this podcast, was so that we could just brain drain everybody else and see how we can improve our own lives.
I love that, and it's not selfish at all. So kudos to you. So to your question, I not only do I live and breathe like helping large enterprises adopt generative AI, and that type of tooling looks a lot different than like the consumer applications that you and I are probably familiar with, like ChatGPT, right? So when I think about the tools that I use, I think about like the two types. There are the tools that help me pursue like the hobbies and the things that I care about, like personally. And that's things like Midjourney. I have never been a designer, but I always wanted to be. Like I had a dream of being like a YouTuber back before it was like cool, and I just like didn't have like the technical chops to do that. And now I use tools like Midjourney and Runway, and I'm just like creating content that I then get to like use to promote my personal brand on like LinkedIn. And that's
Matt, can you just jump in a little bit on what Midjourney and the other tool that you mentioned are?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So Midjourney is like a leading image generation platform. So they and you have to take a look for listeners that want to like learn more about Midjourney.
Yeah.
The advancement, the progress that this platform has had over the past year is like staggering. So you can say, hey, generate me an image of a man in the desert standing in front of a rocket launch. And then I can use that same platform to say, hey, now make it look like this person. And I drag and drop a photo of my face into Midjourney, and then it plops my face onto that. No Photoshop required. And then I get to post a LinkedIn, article about how I'm excited about the progress that SpaceX is seeing. And that workflow would have never been possible for me without Midjourney. And that's an actual example. I just did that last week.
I was going to say, that sounds familiar. I feel like I saw that recently posted.
Inspired by your project, yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course, the rocket one. Yeah, we have to get into that later. And what was the other one you mentioned?
Oh, Runway. So Runway is like video generation. So when it comes to like large language models, some of them are trained for like text to text. Runway has trained their models on either image to video or video to video, meaning you can like create bespoke video content. Imagine in a few years, Runway will be generating like full length feature films just by using like text prompts, which is pretty scary, actually.
Yeah.
They'll probably be better than some of the content that I've been watching on Disney Plus lately.
And there goes our sponsorship with Disney Plus. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, Bob Iker. I have no relations to Dean.
Although the pad that they made for the VR thing, I don't know if you guys saw that. Where
the omnidirectional.
Very cool.
I'm a big VR guy too.
So since you mentioned kind of two worlds, the hobby stuff and the more enterprise stuff, why don't we zoom in a little bit on the hobby stuff real quick? Because I think it's a little more entry level. It's real, easier to kind of understand. Yeah. What are some of the impacts that you kind of mentioned one, but what are some of the impacts that you have gotten tangibly out of using those tools?
Yeah, a few. So beyond like the generation tools, I also use like tools like Perplexity. They're trying to disrupt Google search. So Perplexity AI is like, imagine it's Google search powered by that like AI large language model, like Copilot. So it's like, hey, you're trying to research a topic. Let me recommend articles that are actually going to be relevant for you, better than Google search would, because Google is heavily influenced by the people that pay to be at the top of Google. So I use tools like Perplexity just to like learn faster. And that's like an important hobby for me, right? So staying curious, staying on top of tech trends. I have all these tools at my side to like research the things that I care about. And then like tangibly, what that means is I can like, actually spend time building my personal brand, which is like a hobby of mine that I hope someday will turn into a career. But yeah, that's like fully AI enabled, and it wouldn't be possible with my like work-life balance if I didn't have AI helping.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. It gives like AI gives you the ability to do things that you never ever had the ability to do before, and also, yeah, it gives you those opportunities that sometimes you would have had to invest years of dedicated time to learn certain technologies, certain processes, how to do things properly. Now you can just do it at a click of a button.
Mm-hmm.
It's staggering.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, especially the Midjourney reference. I mean, I've used that quite a few times myself, and the discovery process is the thing that's also super interesting, right? It's not just that you put in a prompt and you get something back. Like you can kind of do the crazy. I remember we did like Joe Rogan riding a whale or something like that, and like this is funny and hilarious. But the styling discovery, where you're like, oh, well, how do I make this look more like that? Or how do I get this to be like pixel art? Like I didn't realize the world of pixel art was out there until using Midjourney, which feels a little wrong because in a way it's all been sort of gleaned from all those artists. But at the same time, it's just like a sense of discovery of, well, I can try this now. And pixel art is a prime example of something that literally would take forever. I mean, you're coloring one pixel at a time, right? Like I don't have the patience for that, but I love the aesthetic.
Oh, is that like sort of, is that like comic book art where it's all the dots? I don't really know what pixel art is.
It's basically the digital version of that. Yeah. Where you're sort of like dotting one color or one pixel at a time. Yes.
Wow.
Exactly.
Okay. Goodness me.
It's like those tattoos that have like the poking.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
George, what's interesting to me is like your professional career and your hobbies, because you're just a creative, like they kind of intersect. Yeah. So like these AI tools that are really relevant for your hobbies are also super relevant for your day-to-day like job.
Yeah.
For me, I wish that was the case from the Midjourney Runway. I wish I was spending my day making money, like making AI videos, but not yet. That is not the
there's a career path there somewhere.
So I have this other side of my AI powered workflows that are really just around helping me be a better partner leader at Writer. And if you're interested, I'd love to share with you guys what those are too.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good point to jump onto our next section, which is, so it really, what we'll do is like, what advantages do those specific AI tools give you in your role as partnerships? Is it time saving? Is it effort reduction? Is it that inspiration?
Yeah, there's, I've learned a lot about like how to actually embed AI into my job because it's something that we help large enterprises like imagine. So Writer serves companies like Vanguard and L'Oreal, right? Huge enterprises, that are security conscious. They care a lot about where the data sits, and they don't want to give everybody an open-ended chatbot to do anything because truthfully, that doesn't really work and actually help people do their jobs more effectively. What we do is we build these like highly specific, customized solutions that will enable anyone to do the things that they're doing day to day, more efficiently, with higher accuracy and better quality. An example of that is like something that I do day to day is I'm constantly talking to like clients and partners, trying to pitch like how Writer will be effective for their problems. So we've actually built an internal chatbot at Writer. So we're like dog fooding this. We're like using it ourselves to effectively prepare me for any conversation that I have coming up with a potential client. So what we've done is we've uploaded or connected our database of, call it like hundreds of market positioning, go-to-market like files, case studies, like our CRM platform. We've connected that to Writer, and then in a chat interface, I can say, "Hey, I'm about to hop on a call with the CMO of Pfizer. What are the pain points that you think I can help them solve? Using what you know about the Writer platform." And this is like a sales enablement capability that is like having like a little co-pilot assistant. It's really, really helpful and cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's quite like that's quite like when we were talking to Sean the other day, Sean Swenson.
Yeah.
Sean mentioned that he was using AI to basically interrogate his personas to make sure that his personas really sort of stacked up. So it's a similar sort of take on it that you're using it as, how can I get the most out of these specific personas? What questions can I ask them? And Sean was kind of on the same lines, but also saying, are my assumptions about these personas correct?
Yeah. Yeah. And it might be maybe the difference. And I love Sean, by the way. So shout out Sean. He's awesome.
Yeah.
The uniqueness of what we found for enterprises is like using the knowledge, there's three things that you should know about, maybe like a quick AI 101 for the folks who are listening. Every large language model has three things that differentiate them. There's the skills of the model, like can you summarize text? Can you answer questions? Can you understand like sentiment? Then there's the behavior, like is this model acting like a helpful assistant, or is this model like toxic or biased, right? And then there's the knowledge of the model. And that's like what information exists in the model that I can surface. So like, hey, when you're asking ChatGPT, like what are, three taco recipes, like that exists within the knowledge of the model. They're not going online to find those. That's like in the data set, right? What we found is that for enterprise use cases, the knowledge of the model needs to be connected to a company's internal data sources, because that is going to be super unique to what they're trying to accomplish. That IP is really what differentiates like the enterprise use cases from consumer, because we can get a lot of the way there using just the knowledge in ChatGPT or the knowledge in Claude or whatever models you're using for consumer stuff, but not for as much for the enterprise. Enterprises kind of require this connection to databases and things that don't really exist for the consumer market.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, so where's the conversation layer then happen, right? Because I'm assuming that with these models, there needs to be enough knowledge of what's what to be able to communicate, but not to overshare or to kind of go beyond the boundaries of privacy, or the other way around, right? To not be too dumb to actually work with it and be not helpful at all.
Yeah, that's actually you bring up a really good point. The more data you feed a model, so the larger they get, that's kind of how you teach them new skills. But that knowledge, if you continue adding additional knowledge, there's actually like a calculatable point where it deprecates, it hurts its skills, because the knowledge is like adding new knowledge to the model might actually impact the outcomes, what you're getting out of it.
Is that sort of like the paradox of choice a bit, but applied to AI?
Maybe in a way. And the thing is, people are trying to take base models and then add their own information into it, not knowing that that's actually impacting its ability to do the things that the model was doing in the first place, because they've been tuned to do that. So we have a paper about actually like, how do you add as much knowledge as you need without impacting the skills of that model? There's like a quantifiable way to do that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So with these tools that you use, I guess, either from a professional or a personal perspective, do you compound any of these AI tools together? So like take the outputs from one AI and feed them into another. Yeah,
definitely. And I think there's something to be said about how like there's an over chatification of AI right now. So like every AI interface that people are familiar with, especially the mainstream ones, are like chatbots. And I even mentioned, of course, I mentioned like a chatbot as the first use case that I talked about. But the reality is a lot of the use cases that I actually have are not chat-based interfaces via Writer. And that's because like if you have a process that is shared across a lot of different people, but prompt engineering is going to change the way that people get value out of it, that is not a good shared process for like large enterprises. So like
Sure.
expecting everybody to be able to be like an expert prompt engineer is actually not,
Yeah.
that's not gonna work. So
It's not realistic.
it's not
Yeah.
realistic at all. So like for instance, when
No.
so I've built an app in Writer that takes any piece of content online, like I can drop in a PDF or I can take a URL from our like blog post newsroom. I can feed it through Writer, and I've trained the app on my tone of voice for writing LinkedIn posts. So instead of every time having to have a conversation with ChatGPT, hey, make this more friendly and put this into bullets and add emojis, and that is not actually helpful. I found that using like chat-based tools like doesn't actually accelerate my time to getting the post out anymore. It takes just as long to take that like 60% of the way there thing to like then get it to my voice.
100%.
Yep.
How are you guys seeing the same thing?
Yeah. So in my, so I look at this from, I'm a copywriter and a copy editor. And certainly in my role as copy editor, I receive blogs and other copy, which has been clearly created just with a copy and paste from ChatGPT. And it's tonally sort of all over the place. It uses language that no real human has ever used. It talks about in the realm of this, and talking about being the bastion and the vanguard, and such pretentious language. This is meant to be blogs that people can read, and you think, and you have to go through it, and I end up going through these things, and I would have been better off just writing the blogs from scratch. I think it would have been about the equivalent amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that we hear every single day. And it's not just, I think your copywriting example is like creme de la creme. Like that is the lighthouse example for a lot of folks who are like, oh, like generative AI in my own tone of voice is different than just using a generic chatbot. But then it goes way beyond that too. Like social posts we talked about, creating derivative content, even like writing job descriptions for companies. Helping them do these types of workflows that have to be done in the exact same way every single time. This is like where we specialize. So I've built all of these workflows for things that are repeated but require like high amounts of specificity. That's the stuff that I've been automating for myself using Writer, and that's like, oh my gosh, it's like a godsend. Like, so getting that blog post that Writer puts out, and then every employee being able to then post that in their own words to LinkedIn has a different impact on like the brand messaging and stuff like that.
I mean, I think what partially what this borders around is like the interface of these tools, right? And the cumbersome nature that the interface on a lot of tools can end up presenting for things. I use Notion for a lot of just like my documentation. They have an AI tool in there, and it's okay. It's highly tuned. And I found that effectively like my prompt has to be something like, rewrite this, keep the tone of my voice. And then I found one of the key things was don't change more than 10% of this text. And then that was like the unlock for it to be like, okay, like I basically have to select some things to change based on the rest of this. But it's interesting because the reason I mention that is it's an obscenely manual process. I mean, I have to kind of like write the thing out. I do this, I reread it, check it again. Then I end up kind of making some sort of combination. So it sounds like have the ability to basically compound things in one process, right? To say like, do this, then that, then that. Is that literally what the interface is like that
that's exactly what it is. And that's what's required to actually get enterprise adoption. Maybe like you probably have heard this from other folks, but like the dirty little secret of generative AI right now is adoption sucks. So like SaaS platforms have like high retention rates. Most companies look for an expanding net dollar retention, right? You're buying more next year. The problem with generative AI is people are unsure how to adopt it into their day-to-day, especially at the enterprise level. And then they stop using it. And that's like leading to churn. That's why you're seeing some really big like AI unicorns like starting to flail. Something that we focus on intensely is like, how does this actually like get into a day-to-day like users like workflow? And the only way to get there, George, is to like simplify it as much as possible, remove the prompt engineering, like make it stupid proof. Like as May says, dumb as hell. Like Like we
Yeah,
need
right.
this to be so easy that you're like, oh, I can drag and drop this product image for like L'Oreal, for instance, taking a product image, dropping it into a file uploader, and then clicking generate, and it's going to give me a product description for that image. These are the types of
Gotcha.
workflows that we create.
And I guess that sort of that's like, if you think about any technology, right? So we think about I was a bit of a geek as a kid, and I did computer science, etc. at uni, and I had like MP3 players, right? But nobody had MP3 players really. Like they weren't really a common thing that people would have. They listen to like Walkmans or mini discs or something like that. And then the iPod came along, and everyone got like essentially an MP3 player just because it was so ridiculously easy. It was this box unit that you had a store you went to, you selected the songs. There was no manual stuff in the background. And again, George and I come from recently from a blockchain background as well. And blockchain is in that sort of pivot point now where it's been very, very hard to get into. Yeah. But all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but there's now much easier ways to buy blockchain, to buy crypto, and therefore the adoption goes up. So I guess it's a common thing in every technology is when you crack that simplification, then it becomes powerful.
I agree completely with that. And I think like the underlying tech has been around. Like that point that you just made is proven because GPT-3 was around for years, right? It came out in what, like 2021, 2022. The wrapper, the software wrapper that they wrapped around it in ChatGPT is what actually led to like hundreds of millions of people using the tech for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of those, right? I have no, I don't mind admitting that it was ChatGPT which basically alerted me to this whole ecosystem.
Totally.
So I think that brings us to the sort of human side of all this, right? We've been talking about how we use all these things, but I mean, Matt, using these tools, whether in the positive impacts or the negative impacts that you kind of outlined, like how does all this make you feel?
Wow, that's deep.
Introspective, yes.
Yeah. How does it make me feel? It makes me feel more productive. I'm in the party that says like these are just tools. They're not replacing me. They're making me louder and enabling me to overachieve and be more productive. Because the reality is like I'm the one that's prompting the model to get it to do something, and it's just helping me feel like I can be more productive and spend less time doing the things that, frankly, I'm not very good at. So like ideating 5 examples of like what a potential title for this podcast could be, that would take me forever. But uploading the transcript and saying like, hey, AI, like what is this going to be? And knowing that like here are the best examples of things that hit and will go viral. These are things that I like want to automate in my life anyway.
Do you think it gives you like does it give you a thrill still? Like, seeing those results coming back and seeing what AI is capable of? I mean, to me, it still does.
It's magic, right? It's just magic. And it's like, I don't know how more people are talking about it. Last night, I'm like trying to work something and I'm like, oh, like I still have to remind myself, I could just use it like a chat assistant to help me here. Like this is something that I don't need to stress about. Like I could just use a tool to help me, and it just makes the process more enjoyable. Specifically for learning, that workflow, that idea of like I'm a curious person. I like to read a lot and like learn. Really like always having that assistant up with me when I need to ask a question or clarify something. That's made me feel really, really smart.
Yeah. Do you ever feel as if it's cheating?
Yeah, I do. I feel like it's always cheating. And I think the best example of this is like when I'm getting kudos in Slack because I've summarized the call that I just had really effectively. And they're like, wow, Matt, those are great notes. I'm like, Totally me.
They are good notes.
I totally wrote all of those notes out, and the key takeaways for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it
that kind of stuff is amazing, right? Like those optimizations for the day to day. I've been using a similar tool for keeping track of meetings. I've been using Motion, not to be confused with Notion, to schedule my day, which has actually been super helpful. It basically looks at my calendar and it finds times for me to do the different things I have on a task list with hour gaps in between. And hey, you got to eat lunch and take the dogs
What sort of
out,
stuff do you
etc.
put in there then? Like, eat, walk the dogs,
Yeah, sit down,
Right.
stand up. No, yeah, it's everything. Like you can kind of have it build out project stuff. So I'll be like, oh, I need to do a study of this. And then after that, I need to, set up a meeting and do it. And so it'll help me kind of remind myself to keep track of all of those things sort of as we go continuously, which is super helpful, honestly.
And Matt, which AI tool do you use to monitor your calls?
I actually, my calls are oftentimes recorded and then fed through Gong. So Gong,
Okay.
This is a good example. There's a tool now that I've been using in sales for years, but the AI enabled functionality that it has, because it's transcribing and then feeding that transcription. I find that it does a good job, like pulling out the key takeaways or like the next steps. I also have like tuned an app in Writer to take call transcripts and then specifically transform them into something that is relevant for like exactly what I'm looking for. So like Gong doesn't have all of the context, right? But Writer does, because we can take the same call transcripts and all of the CRM info that I have, and maybe even just like other information that I want to feed into that prompt. I can do that in Writer.
That's
awesome.
that's so you have a team of squads of AIs working for you, and you're taking all the credit for their success. I love that.
That's right.
That's what managers have been doing all the time, right?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you both about this idea. Something that I'm toying with a lot now is like the mini CEO, which is this idea that you feed a chatbot context about your goals and your life. And it doesn't have to be too insane, but some people have like fed all of their books and their life's work into an AI model, and then you ask it. It's like a version of yourself, but AI powered, that helps you like accomplish what you're looking for, and they call that the mini CEO. What's your take?
I've never heard it termed that. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah,
I think that it's in life it's really it's sometimes hard to keep momentum and keep traction on ideas, and it's quite hard sometimes when you hit like you can hit sort of dead ends, or you can have like writer's block, you can have various different mental situations where you just like, I don't know, you're a little bit frozen. And to be able to have something which knows your background, knows everything that you want to achieve, knows about you, and can give you those prompts and give you that sort of help and just give you direction. It almost just makes everything so much easier. And all you're doing as the user is you're just following its commands, if you like, or following its instruction, and it gives you that nudge to push things forward.
Yeah. I've actually built a custom GPT for my business to help with that, where I basically say, like, I want you to be a business advisor for me. This is my target audience. I copied all of the content from my website into it. It has like a 50 question FAQ that I, of course, asked it for what questions it would need. And here's the questions. I answered them and uploaded it. And it's great for, I don't consider it autopilot. I consider it like a good map, right? Where it'll say, here are some things that could be helpful for you to talk about next. Or I had one situation come up where someone was like, well, we can do like payment up front, or we could do some sort of royalty thing. And I'm like, I don't know, what royalty cost do I get? Blah, blah. And it tells, hey, this is typically what you should do. Or like, based on your prices, this is what it should be. And it's like, that would have taken me months to, even if I found the answer, to actually test it and see if it was right. Or if the person who wrote it just biased, or didn't, or I didn't read everything and I just took it for what it was.
Wow.
It's sort of, it's that, it was one of your politicians, Rumsfeld or someone who came up with the known unknowns and the known knowns, which is, it's perfectly valid. It got pilloried in the press, but perfectly valid. There are known unknowns, right? And there are unknown unknowns. And sometimes you just don't know where to look, and you don't know what you don't know. And to have any sort of advisor, whether it's a human, whether it's an AI, who can just shine a light on something that you are completely ignorant of, I mean, to be able to do that is so powerful.
Yeah.
Super powerful. And I just want to reiterate something you said, Dean. Like the reality is people like don't take the time to write down their goals and like what they care about and their values. It's something that I have a good friend of mine who's like always pushed me to do that. So like keeping a journal, like all those things are really valuable. But think about now the folks that do write their goals down. You can now feed that to an AI, your mini CEO, and have that person help you stay on track to like actually accomplish the things that you want. And like George, to your point, like how does AI make me feel? Like helps me feel like I can accomplish more of what I want to do in life. And that is like the unlock for the people that take advantage of this. They're going to feel more fulfilled. They're going to be able to program in their goals and objectives and have an AI help them achieve that. And then the people that don't are going to feel like they're missing something, and that's because they don't have like the companionship of an AI. I haven't gotten into character AI, by the way, so I don't have an AI girlfriend. But I will say I have a normal girlfriend.
If she looked like Anna de Armas in Blade Runner 2049, then I would not complain about having an AI girlfriend.
Right, Ex Machina vibes for sure. No, but I will say like that's also a fascinating development in this like space too. That some people like are spending a lot of time with these characters. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
so I guess that. Oh, sorry. I was going to say, George, sorry. I'm going to steal the limelight. So this actually is a really nice segue into understanding, I guess, what advice what would you say is the biggest single negative of AI, specifically in your role from like a partnerships perspective?
Yeah. Biggest negative, I think, like maybe broadly too, is how it's also a positive. It's like how easy all of this stuff is becoming to create. Like content generation, right, is like really easy now. The cost of producing 1,000 or 500 words, I think, like went from $500 or 1,000 words. I'm sorry, I was reading like ARC Invest's like most recent like big ideas report, and it was like for the last century it cost $500 to create 1,000 words of like professionally written copywriting. Now it's 16 cents for 1,000 words. So it's like now we're like content is ubiquitous and we just have like too much of it. So the negative of that is like, Dean, to your point, partnerships aside, sales too, like I'm just getting inundated with emails that are personalized, and people are like the channels that I used to rely on are now just like shit. And that's because people are using AI to help them do the thing that is helpful for me too. So that's like the negative side of it is, oh man, now there's just like, it's too easy to create some of these things.
So you have a chat, you have your own personal chatbot answering the chatbots of other people who are trying to sell you things, and it ends up becoming, we're so abstracted from actually what's happening. Well, that's where we're heading, right? I mean, we are undoubtedly heading to that point.
That's a real issue or worry about a lot of AI experts, that these agents, right, that once you have an AI bot that's sort of working for you on your behalf and doing actions, they're just going to try to sell to each other constantly. Like imagine an email back and forth, negotiating something that doesn't exist anyway. Dangerous.
Yeah, that is dangerous. What I also liked is that it's I liked about your answer, Matt. It was reminded me of those interview questions where people are like, so tell me about your biggest flaw or your biggest fault, and it's like, I just I work too hard.
AI is amazing. But it's true, right? Like there's like downsides to like all of like the functionality we're talking about. Like just flip that on the other side and say like, oh, now scammers can like write these personalized emails too, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You no longer find that these Nigerian princes have so many grammar mistakes, grammatical mistakes.
Right.
So I guess coming towards the end of this, it's been absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's been really sort of revelatory, a lot of this stuff. could you, in a nutshell, could you give any advice to listeners who are keen to sort of achieve, some level of proficiency or your role? How can someone easily leverage AI to get them started?
Yeah.
What's the baby steps?
They're like, at the end of the day, these are tools. Like, it's not, AI is not something that's so revolutionary that like it has to be categorized as its own form of like tech platform. It will be, and AI is going to impact everything that you do. But the reality is like that's intimidating to people because the news is just like overblowing that. You just need to like start trying it. Like, don't be afraid to like go on to ChatGPT or like download an AI app and just like use it for fun. The first AI app I used was this app called Lensa. And I wanted to upload like 10 profile pictures to create like versions of me that were like an astronaut. And like that was my first use case with AI. And like then I realized, oh, this is easy. And you can work your way up. So like my recommendation in a nutshell is like just start using it to get yourself comfortable. Yeah. But then my recommendation for like a professional who wants to like take it to the next level, like do whatever you can to involve yourself in the, especially at like larger companies. All of them have these AI center of excellences. It's a board level initiative coming from the CEO saying, we need to implement generative AI across our business. Be the person that raises your hand and says, hey, I think AI can impact this thing that we do here. I've seen this so many times, but so many people who have raised their hands to like help lead the adoption of AI end up like getting promoted because it's like a business objective that everyone cares about, but B, like they find more like value in their job. They like really start to enjoy it. They feel like they're on the cutting edge and like that person becomes an AI program leader. And that to me like would be really interesting if I was at like a traditional finance company or something.
And I guess we're at such a starting point, I guess, for AI. We're at such an early stage, like a nascent stage. Is that the right word? I don't know.
It's like the primordial ooze of like the Big Bang.
Yeah. Right? So it's like if you're going to jump on board, like now is a great time to jump on board because you can pick it up relatively easily. Because I imagine then, in a few years' time, things will become a lot more complicated. If you can pick things up easily, you can become an expert quite easily. There's not many people who know much about it, so you can differentiate yourself. So becoming an early adopter is going to give you so many benefits in the years ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Early adopter. It's like the internet. Yeah. Just like start building your first like web pages and it'll work out. In the future.
And you'll be the next Bezos.
There you go.
I hope I get buff like Bezos. That guy is he's yoked.
He's got a lot of time at this point. Yeah, lifting his yacht up all the time.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's so funny. I was about to go on a tangent, but realized maybe I will.
Yeah, I was going to go on a tangent as well, but I think we'll probably get sued. Okay, so I mean, from my perspective, this has been fantastic. George, is there anything else that you wanna discuss? We've got Matt on.
I think, Matt, it's been awesome hearing how you kind of engage with all of the tools that you're using, and frankly, the honesty about it. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else that we would want to dive into, unless there's anything that we missed and you want to kind of mention or bring up.
No, I just had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
It was a great time.
And it's cool. I do want to dig in, George, maybe on another episode. Like Please. You're using motion, right? Like the things that I haven't started to work through, like my schedule, which is a freaking nightmare. Like using AI to like for those workflows would be really interesting to me. So we should talk about that someday soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely do another one. One. It has been totally great having you here. Thank you so much for your time, Matt. This has been absolutely huge.
Yeah, super fun. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Matt.
Welcome back, everybody. We've arrived at the part of the show that Dean and I like to call the debrief, where we dive into some of the highlights of the conversation that we just had with Matt. So where do you want to start, Dean?
Yeah, let's talk about some of the tools that he was using, because those tools were some of those tools were pretty new to me. So I've got a list of Midjourney that he was using for image creation. I've got
Mm-hmm.
Runway that he was using for videos. Gong he was using for sort of call meeting
recording.
analysis, call recording, or interpreting the script.
Yeah, they've been around for a while, and they basically, I remember using them almost 5 years ago, or seeing people use them, and it would record calls and then basically do sentiment analysis on the transcript, or kind of live, to basically say, like, this person is getting more willing to buy, or this person is feeling reluctant around different things.
Okay, so that's wow, Jesus,
really cool.
Feeding that into your, using AI to interrogate your calls and assess where they are on your CRM.
And it would even send reports to the managers of the sales team, so that they could say, like, you're working too much in this, or back off on this area, or whatever it might be.
Right. So like sales coaching, I guess.
Sales coaching, and then even just the caller analysis. I remember the one that blew me away was it would recommend the amount of seconds to stay silent per person that you're speaking to, based on how long it takes them to answer questions. So one of the things that we had found at the company that we were using this at was that some of the salespeople were trying to get to the point too quickly. And that they just had to wait and let it sit. Think. Which was uncomfortable for people on a human level, but the AI told us that was what was best. So
it is. It can be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable once you've asked a question. And I learned this when I was in enterprise sales. I guess maybe I learned it, before that, when I was asking girls out. But you've got to let the questions sit and not be afraid to just wait, because you can feel like, oh, silence is killing me. I better jump in.
Right. Or did I not ask the question right? Like, are they just confused? That's always what I do. And then I never stop asking the question, because I keep providing the answer for them, basically.
Wow. And so that technology would analyze a person's average sort of wait time and how long they needed. You need to just let it sit.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, what world are we living in, man?
I know. Seriously. And that was 5 years ago. That was pre big models.
Pre the revolution.
Right. But some of the others that he had mentioned, Midjourney, the image generating tool, that one's fantastic. I use that on almost daily basis. Text
so these
prompts,
paid tools.
Basically. Yeah, subscription based. It kind of gets a certain number of, like, all of these AI tools use what they call tokens, which is sort of a way of assessing how much thinking and processing it's done.
Sure.
So you can kind of scale it back. And then he mentioned Runway as well. I believe it was Runway AI, which is amazing. You can basically take an image, highlight an area of it, and say stormy background, whatever, if it's like a photo of a ship, and it will just make video of that ship in that exact image, make it into video of the thing happening.
Wow. I'm going to have to give these a try.
Yeah.
That's it is staggering. And as I said as we said on the call, like I very much come at this from a perspective of a brain drain on all of our guests to really get to find out how I can better improve my life or whatever I do. And that idea, I was sort of aware of the nebulous concept of this CEO, whatever we call it, a personal CEO.
That was great, virtual CEO or something.
But I'd never heard it sort of coined in that really sort of laid down specifically like that. And that for me is like that's my next project that I'm going to really invest time into filling my hopes and dreams and experience into an AI so it can tell me what I need to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the thing that reminded me of the biggest or the most was Matt's chatter about how to interface with these things, where, he's talking about, like, you have this chatbot and you might set it up to kind of be your coach or your CEO and be able to ask it questions, but you're still doing this typing act and explaining to it what to do. So in a way, you kind of jump ahead of that. It's sort of a shortcut for it already to know, and you don't have to tell it every time.
Yeah.
But the thing that I was really amazed by was how he was talking about compounding those tools, where he has one module of his whole tool set is just that whole process of writing something out and doing the whole thing, and then to do a bunch of stuff with it. It's like, that seems like it's the real future of these things.
I think you're right. It's that bit he said about like removing that prompt engineering. So, there's a lot of talk about, prompt engineering. I think you and I had a discussion about it, which was that, prompt engineering itself is going to become like a university course, or,
Right.
you're going to have to be skilled in prompt engineering. But what Matt's saying is actually that leaves so many sort of variables. And actually what you need is to get rid of that whole side of things, and for you be able to roll out this AI that has the same assumptions, makes the same, negates the need for any prompt engineering because it applies the same rules to everybody in your organization based on what your organization's done, based on who you're speaking to, being on how you're successful, your customer list, takes all the information, everything you created, and it just, it has this context.
And the idea that they're already aware as a software company that the human prompt can be the biggest problem with the result. Is huge, because to me, it almost like this whole prompt engineering chatter that's been happening on a lot of different people are talking about that this is going to be the future of things. In a way, I almost see that as a little bit of a jump to a conclusion, right? It's almost like saying that the steam locomotive was the only train that there ever was going to be. You should know everything about it.
Yeah.
When a couple of years later, now we have electric and diesel and other ways of moving a train. And if you had zoomed in on just learning how steam locomotives work, you would have missed the train, so to speak. But that was good. I gotta love a good pun that comes out.
Yeah, that was really insightful.
Yeah, thank you. But the idea that like saying that prompt engineering is the future, that might be true for a subset of the people who are continuing to build these tools for the people who don't have any experience with interfacing with these, right? Even the people who don't have a ChatGPT account and they're like, I don't even know where to even start with it. Like there has to be a way that's even simpler of like building blocks or something to kind of get it going.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was another thing as well, which he mentioned as well to me, which to me was interesting, which was the fact that I guess that a lot of this AI stuff becomes like shelfware. It just they buy it, people don't use it because they don't know how to use it, and you're seeing a lot of these AI unicorns starting to fail, or some of these AI unicorns starting to fail just because of the problem with low adoption, and then when people do adopt it, they don't end up using it because of the misunderstanding or confusion or
almost the hype versus the quality output that you actually get. Like some of them were really great for the sake of us as a human race moving forward with AI, right? Where you're like, well, someone had to come up with an AI music generator at some point, but do I actually want to pay for that? Like, not really. No,
it reminds me of like, going back to our blockchain Web3 experience, Web3, it makes me laugh. It's not Web3, right? AI is Web3, right? Blockchain is not Web3. Anyway, I mean, I don't agree with it, right?
Like, I mean, it runs on AWS. I'm sorry, but that does not make it. Yeah, that's
exactly. But it reminds me of like, there was a period, I don't know, 18 months ago, right, where everything was being turned into a blockchain or crypto, whether it was, there was that token like Audius or whatever it was that was like trying to tokenize music like recording
Spotify on blockchain, basically.
Yeah, all this sort of stuff. And there was all these people who tried to apply blockchain technology to anything that existed. And actually turns out that, probably the use case isn't really there. There's not really a need for it, but it's a kind of interesting experiment to do. And some of the things that you think will succeed will fail. And some of the things that you think will fail will succeed. And it'll be the same with AI.
100%. I mean, how could it not be, right? You have to have these experimentations that are going to lead to, I mean, some of the things in that example, the Audios one, I think that platform may not have been a success, but the idea of setting up the infrastructure for what effectively goes way back to the iPod discussion, right? The thing that not only helped make the iPod usable was the DRM protection. You had the ability for artists to put their music on iTunes, and that's the only music you could put on this device. It was the only music that would work. So in a way, when you mentioned that, it was like almost a perfect analogy. And that was one of the things I was like, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, because in my mind, I was like, I see this the same as blockchain. I see this the same as the AI movement, where you have these people who are willing to toy with the pieces and the chunks to get to some outcome that they think is really great. And you might be able to wrap a business around and could be really cool. But then there's the more kind of streamlined approach to waiting to prove out what all of these different technologies actually, their resonance is with people and where the actual product is. Because I think some of these things, it's like back to that one of the song generator, it's like probably a lot of hours of thought and process and work to make an AI song recorder. But as a business next to an AI chatbot, the chatbot is just more usable for more people in the world, kind of thing. But both, you could argue, are needed to kind of like move us along in the ability to have.
Yeah, I guess it's, for me, I'm thinking like, Tesla versus Edison. Right. So like Tesla was this fantastic genius creator who had all these elaborate inventions and they were all fantastic. Whereas Edison seemed to be able to cherry pick things that he thought, actually, this kind of works. Right. And I'm going to make money off this. So it's that difference. It's, there's a use case. People will pay for this. Let's just make sure the light bulb doesn't last too long, because otherwise they'll never replace it. And that, making a business out of these things. Right. So,
right. No, it's totally true. I mean, the other thing that really jumped out at me with Matt's just knowledge of this stuff was his understanding of the layers, the three core layers. And that to me was like, I need to dive in and learn more there, because I've run into the problem that he mentioned, which is I use a chatbot on my website for lead generation to kind of get people set up on calls or to answer basic questions. And I found that if I give it too many sources for the knowledge base, it ignores them.
Okay.
It like almost
do they
doesn't
conflict
know.
or
I don't know if it's they conflict necessarily. Like, it's not like I say I accept credit cards and then I don't, right? But it's more that like both of these things discuss payments. And then it's sort of like, well, just tell me which one you want me to use, kind of thing is how I imagine.
I'm going back to my paradox of choice.
Right, exactly. That there's too many things for it to do and it can't understand in the moment, or it's been tuned to not spend more tokens to figure it out, or whatever the back end thing that's happening. But his knowledge of like, there's if I don't remember them perfectly, but it was something like there's the learning layer, there's the sort of inherent knowledge layer, and then there's the kind of source material, or what you want me to do. The kind of usefulness functionality piece. Fascinating.
No, I have to like you say, I have to dive into that one. It was really, really interesting. Cool. Are we done wrapping up?
I think so. Should we do the close it out?
Close it out, George.
All right. And that's a wrap on another episode. Thanks so much for joining us on the AI Impacts podcast, where we dive into how AI has impacted real people in real jobs. As usual, be sure to tell your friends and share with your network. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to follow and subscribe so you can not miss our next episode, whenever that might be. Thanks so much. I'm George Little. This is Dean Hansen.
I'm Dean Hansen.
Oh, he's Dean Hansen.
Thanks. I'm Dean Hansen.
Cheers,
Cheers, guys.
See ya.